Hello, everyone. You are listening to The Redshift, your connection to your piece of the sky. I'm your host, Emma Miller. Hello. Hi, Mimo. Hi, Galdwin. Hi, Stealth. Hi, Maximo. Hi, Jedi. Hello, Medallin. Hello. Mimo, I'm very glad that you can sing for me. I appreciate that. Hi, Tempker. Hi, Trailblazer. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Karen. Welcome in, my friends. Bayfocus, welcome. Hello, fashionably late. Hi, Shiny Force. Welcome in, my friends. What a week it has been. Thank you all for bearing with me this week. Now, it's been a fairly quiet week, little bit, and it's been a fairly quiet week for the ISA, it sounds like, too. We don't really have any announcements to share from the ISA today. But of course, we do have our astronaut letter, which will be exciting for us to get into. So we'll be hopping into that very shortly. Broccoli, I really do love that GIF. Do I have an Instagram? I don't have an Instagram. No, I don't have an Instagram. I'm a pretty no social media type of person, which maybe surprises you. Hi, Petro. Hi, Stealth. Nope, I've not got any of them. So, this week we are going to hop right into, I don't have a Twitter, Maximum, sorry. I don't have a Twitter, but you can always follow the ISA's Twitter. The ISA has a Twitter that you can follow, and I would highly recommend that you do that. It's a great place to follow. Rerouted, what is the MySpace? I don't even know what MySpace is. What is that? I don't... Maybe my mom would know what a MySpace is. I'm not sure. Well, let's hop right in to the fun of this week. So we do have a letter this week, like I said, and of course a game. And the game was written or created by the astronauts that sent the letter. And I do say astronauts because though one astronaut wrote the letter, technically it kind of involves two astronauts. Which you guys will see very, very shortly. So I hope you all are very excited. And then after the letter, of course, we're going to share our weather report, our sponsor message like we always do. And then we're going to hop into a very fun game. I am super excited to share this game with you. Like I said, the astronauts who were in this letter helped to make it. I think it's going to be lots of fun. So start getting your GIF searches ready. Not just GIFs necessarily. You're going to want to maybe look up some pictures on a search engine. Just get your thinking caps on. I think you're going to need them. So with that, let's hop right into our astronaut letter. It is from Corey Leonard. So let's hop right in. Like I say every time, please remember that these letters are written by the astronauts, and so they are in their words. So as I read them, it is Corey's writing and not my own. With that, let's head on in. Corey Leonard here, also known as Cup Noodle. Why? Glad you asked. Cup of Noodles is like the official meal of Caltech grad students. So my last year there, I 3D printed a model of a cup noodle package at 100 times the size. In pieces, obviously, because that bad boy was about as tall as a 2-story house. Then, right after my last exam, me and a buddy snuck onto the roof of the Gates Thomas Engineering Lab and put it together. With solvents, obviously, so it couldn't just be disassembled. I thought it was hilarious. Caltech did not. The dean said the only reason they decided to let me have my degree was that a prank like that was going to give me a reputation that would keep me from ever getting hired for a serious job. But you know what? Fast forward 10 years, I get this email. It's from Aaliyah Dunbar, who, by this time, had made the jump from Artemis to running the ISA's Mars mission. Inside was nothing but a picture of my cup noodle on the top of the lab and one sentence. If you like boring food, bad pay, and 3D printing, I have the job for you. The rest is history. I like to think I'm a pretty funny guy, but I guess I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I like to talk, I like to laugh, I like a good practical joke. My fellow astronauts have a word they sometimes use to describe me. I think it means loud and friendly and not very patient. What was it again? Oh, right. American. That was it. I guess if you are quiet and polite and very, very patient, I'm kind of a lot. But nobody on the base is quieter or more polite or patient than Maxim Solikov. Maximum Sock, I like to call him. I mean, I don't because he hates it, but I really want to. For the record, feel free to call me Maximum Leonard. I mean, who wants to be Medium Leonard? Or Mean Annual Leonard? That's even worse, but I digress. Maxim never lets himself get angry, of course. But the week we were sick, I got him up to definitely annoyed. I can do that to people. It's a gift. The thing is, poor Hanzu was running his butt off running errands for us. There was a lot of chatter on the radio about which tasks he ought to do, and I was pretty blunt about saying Maxim's tasks needed to be at the bottom of the list. He kept wanting Hanzu to check out his experimental lichens. I'm not making this up. The thing is, Maxim is the Terraform Mars guy. Give him his props, he's done it. His work reversing climate change damage in a microbiome of the Karakum Desert was legendary. Like, he worked with Yui Nakano on her perchlorate eating bacteria, and she got the actual founder of the ISA, Gabriel Rebane, to personally pitch him on joining the ISA. Maybe it's because Maxim's a little bit older than most of us, but that dude takes a long view. I mean, long. Terraforming Mars, I mean. You heard the astrobiologist at the AMA, right? That's a 1,000-year project. But in the here and now, the week we were sick, he kept asking Hanzu to check on his experiments, and everybody was super polite. Kinda. So finally I just figured somebody had to say, listen, Max, we've got one botanist running on basically caffeine pills and terror, and if it comes down to a choice of check the lichens or check the nuke, he's going to check the nuke, okay? Which honestly, I stand by that. But the short version is, the lichens died, and Maxim was pissed. You could tell by the way he said, pass the powdered mashed potatoes, please, that he meant it to sting. By the time we could all peel ourselves off the latrines, we were way behind schedule, prepping for the arrival of Mission 4. And there was a backlog of critical maintenance work to do. High on that list? A blinking red light on the monitor of the rocket fuel tanks. Quick explainer here. For those of you that dozed off in first-year chemistry, the fuel plant takes in carbon dioxide and ice and spits out oxygen and methane. If you were feeling cute, you could say it unburns them. Chemically, that's what happens. Unburning. When that's done, you have a tank full of oxygen and a tank full of methane. And those two really want to get together and have a party, where party is another word for a huge freaking explosion. So, when the sensor tells you that a little bit of oxygen has gotten into the methane tank, and a few teaspoons of methane are in the oxygen tank, it makes those of us who didn't fall asleep in chem class very, very nervous. Now, mixing oxygen and methane won't automatically cause an explosion. You need some heat. Fine. But if a wire shorts out, or there's a lightning strike, or a meteorite punches through the metal tank and makes a spark, boom. Like all things on Mars, it's just a matter of time until something goes wrong. So you really, really need to go find the leak and fix it as soon as you can. Obviously, it's not a job for a lone, sleep-deprived botanist. If at all possible, it's a two-man job. One guy to replace the leaking valve. The problem pretty much had to be a faulty valve. And the other to monitor the sensors, preferably from behind a blast shield. With Ida still recovering from a nasty case of death, I was the obvious engineer to replace the valve. If you've been paying any attention, you know the mission commander here on Mars is Minnie Mabaya. If you've been paying closer attention, it won't surprise you that the person she picked to go with me was Max. It was late afternoon when we suited up, 60 degrees below zero. Between wind chill and Max, it felt more like -90. The fuel tanks are out in the launch area, pretty close to a couple of rockets, which made sense in terms of convenient fueling, but when you think about a possible explosion, maybe isn't such a great idea. Big explosion on Earth, you get a fireball that billows up, cause the atmosphere is thick and hot air rises. On Mars, an explosion stays way more spherical. It goes wider, stays low longer. We found a little ridge about 300 meters from the fuel tanks. Not a ton of protection, but better than nothing if I were to make a start and trigger what I call a rapid exothermic acceleration condition, meaning kaboom. We set up a set of field monitors for Max, scanners and graphers and scopes, all trying to make sure that your pal Corey didn't turn himself into a steaming hot blast of cup noodle by accident. Job 1 was tracking the oxygen monitors from the methane tank. Fun fact, these are actually magnetic because liquid oxygen is attracted to magnetic fields in a way that methane isn't. Isn't science cool? He had a bunch of other stuff too. Scanners and graphers and scopes. Engineers, we like information the way big spenders like money. Scientists, man, they just like to hoard data, whether they know what to do with it or not. So we get Max tucked in behind his ridge, then I lope over to the tanks. One of my favorite things about Mars, the low gravity means you can get these giant superhero strides. Once there, I set the processor to shut down, drained the lines, crimped the pipe on both sides of the join valve, and then worked it free. Remember how perchlorates are corrosive as well as toxic for humans? If you're a longtime listener of The Redshift, you won't be any more surprised than I was to find the valve clogged with red dust and its separator mesh starting to fray. I swapped the old valve out and twisted the new one into place. Then I asked Max for a status check. He sounded startled, like he had been thinking of something else. He started to check his readings, then swore and told me there was a dust devil on the other side of the tank from me, a big one. Worse yet, the spinning dust had picked up a ton of static charge, so the whole thing inside was sparking and cracking, like a miniature tornado with tiny lightning bolts going off inside. Now, because the atmosphere on Mars is so thin, the lightning isn't nearly so dangerous. The average lightning bolt on Earth packs about 300 million volts. On Mars, maybe 20,000. Hardly dangerous at all, unless it sparks next to a tank holding basically 5,000 liters of rocket fuel. I saw the new valve hanging in the fuel plant cycle down, slammed the access panel shut, and ran in huge superhero leaps across the Martian desert, waiting at every second to feel Thor's burning hammer hit me in the back and blast me out of this life and into the next one. Then I tripped. Thing about Earth is, you trip. You faceplant hard and then you stop. On Mars, when you're running flat out, it turns out you just keep going. So now I'm speed rolling, ass over tea kettle, legs and arms sticking out in random directions like some kind of crazy tumbleweed until I hit the ridge where Maxim was, rocketed up, clipped him in the helmet with one flailing boot, and plowed through a stack of sensor equipment like a bowling ball, knocking over a set of $1 million pins. Then I lay there, chest heaving, and waiting for the squealing hiss of my suit depressurizing. But damn, those guys and gals in Manila know how to sew. I didn't get a single rip or puncture. My heart finally slowed down enough that I could look around. I found Maxim staring at me. Looking down, I realized I was wearing so much Mars dust I looked like a strawberry popsicle some kid dropped in the dirt. Sure, I said, but I make it cool. Long story short, the dust devil petered out without any sparks blowing the fuel tanks. Thank God. But there might have been a few sparks behind the ridge as I asked Maxim what the hell he had been doing that A spark-making dust devil had gotten within 30 meters of me before he thought to mention it. He coughed, embarrassed, and said that he'd been scanning the area with infrared to look for possible leaks in the fuel tanks when a flash caught his eye. It was late in the day by this point, the sun right down low to the horizon, and there was this sudden brightness that caught his eye. Then he tried to sight in on the region of the flash, first with binoculars, then with LiDAR, and then a sonar scan that returned a really interesting result, as if the ping were coming back of an almost perfect lens shape. He started to get excited talking about his instrument's reading, and I had to focus him again from the pleasures of abstract discovery to the fact that I could have been sprayed across the surface of Mars like butter over burned toast. He got super apologetic then, but I was still cranky. I went back to the fuel tank and installed the new valve. Next chore was to clean up our oxygen and methane. It takes a lot of work to collect those rocket fuel components. I wasn't going to just open the spigots and drain both tanks. To clean them, well, I'll keep it simple. Basically, you make the Mars equivalent of a still. Methane goes liquid at 160 degrees below zero. Methane at about negative 180. So if you cool the tanks down to about negative 170, you can open a tap on the top of the methane tank and let the oxygen bubble out, while opening a spigot at the bottom of the oxygen tank and letting the methane drip away. The temperatures are a little different depending on the pressure, but you get the idea. And of course, that's easier to do at night when it's already negative 110 degrees below freezing. So there we sat, Maxim and I, waiting for the bone-chilling Martian night to get really cold. For once, I didn't have much to say. As much as Maxim didn't like to hear me talk, me not talking to him really freaked him out. When it got cold enough, I went back to the plant and set up the distillation process. When I got back, he was waiting for me, but my shoulder lights were on and I could see boot prints leading over to the location of his mystery flash. "Find anything?" I said. I could actually see him blush inside his helmet. He stammered and said nothing special. He apologized again and asked in this really humble way if there was anything he could do to make it up to me, anything at all. So I gave in. I'm not a guy who holds a grudge. So I told him I did have one task. But hard as it was for me, it would be brutal for him. Terrible. But if he did this one chore for me, we'd call it even. "Anything," he said. "Whatever you want." "It's my turn to write the redshift letter," I told him. "But you are going to make up the game for Emma. It's got to be engaging, of course, and educational, but most of all," "Oh no," he said, "it has to be funny." So, this week, that's the challenge. You guys play the game Maxim made up, and at the end, you decide. If it kept you entertained, taught you something, maybe made you laugh, great, we're even. If not, well, he has to take the name badge off all his gear and replace it with a new one. Goodbye, Maxim Sokolov. Hello, Maximum Sock. You be the judge. All right. That was our astronaut letter. What a rousing time. I've got to say, I'd watch a TV show with Maxim and Corey in a second. They're like classic buddy cop moment. I think it's hilarious. I am very impressed that they managed to get everything fixed. How terrifying would that have been, though? I'm glad we still have Corey with us. That would have been a very scary way to go. Glad that, it wasn't too serious for him. So, with that being said, we're going to play the game that Maxim made for us in just a moment here. But first, we are going to cut to our sponsor message and our weather. So, here we go. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to look up into the night sky and see the Earth hanging over you? Ever dream of being part of a truly legendary moment in human history? Like solving problems with your head and your hands? If that sounds like you, then ISA Vulcan wants you. A half day up the Peruvian Andes from Cusco, what was once an abandoned mine has become reclaimed and refitted as the ISA's world-class training center for astronauts with an engineering focus. Working in the cold, thin air isn't for everyone, but it's the best training you'll find for the cold, dry climate of Mars. To become self-sustaining, Mars will need new, inventive ways to find raw resources and turn them into the building blocks of mankind's next home. Engineers trained at ISA Vulcan will lead that charge. If you're spending your days designing marketable objects of no real value, if your work mostly goes to making a few rich folks richer, if your current job leaves you feeling as if the best of you is, well, left untapped, sign up to be screened as an ISA astronaut trainee with an engineering focus. ISA Vulcan, the only logical choice. And now, the weather. Temperatures are cooler and weather settling down a bit as a result. Expected lows around negative 100 degrees Celsius and highs of negative 5 degrees. Atmospheric pressure at 640 Pascal with winds from near zero to 20 meters per second or 70 kilometers per hour, still to the south. Skies are clear with opacity averaging about 0.6. With that, we are going to hop into our game. So, our game this week is going to be a fun kind of guessing game, if you will. We're going to have to work together in order for you to figure out what the answer to each round of my game is. So let me explain it simply. Your goal is to guess the theme of words each round. So as an example, the theme could be something like things that have legs. After I give you an example image or GIF, so I will start by posting an image, you will have about a minute to respond with an image, a GIF, or just a word that you type out, because I know sometimes it's harder to send the GIFs, that go along with the first thing that I've sent. So for example, if I put an image of a dog and you put an image of a table, that would work for things that have legs. And so I'll tell you that goes along the theme. If you put a snake, I will tell you no. After everybody has had a chance in that minute to submit their thought or their thought in terms of an image, GIF, or word, I will tell you that you have a chance now to guess. At that point, after the first round, you can make your guess of what the theme is. So you could say, if you have the guess of things that have legs after the first round, you can say that then. Or I can send you a second GIF and we can go through a second, third, and even fourth round of me giving you examples if you haven't been able to guess. I think it'll make even more sense as we play it. So I think we hop into our first round. Make sure that you're paying attention to one another about what works and what doesn't work. After I tell you what works, you can guess right away what the theme is, or you can wait, as I said, until you've gone through all of them. Now, I will probably have to check on some of these things to see if they are fitting of the theme. So it might take a couple of seconds in between each round. So bear with us. So with that, we're going to get started. I'm going to send you my very first image, and you are going to have a minute to send me back an image that you think goes along with the image that I'm sending you right now. So I'm going to send it right here. You have a minute to decide what you think would go along with a banana. So our first word is banana. So you have a minute starting from right now. All right, we've got some options. All right, you have about 10 seconds left. All right, I'm going to call it here. All right, we're going to call it here. So I'm seeing a lot of GIFs that are yellow, some with fruit in there, trees. I think that's Homer Simpson. I believe those are Minions, Power Rangers, Big Bird. So none of those are going to go with the theme of this round. So I will go ahead and send you your next, unless you want to guess what the theme is, I will go ahead and send you our next clue for the round. So our next clue is a radium watch. Radium watch. So you have a minute starting right now to make your next guess. So something that would go with a radium watch and a banana. What do we think? What do we think? All right, I'm seeing some words. I'm seeing some words. I'm seeing some things. All right. All right, you guys have about 20 seconds left. Keep your guesses going. I like the banana gift, broccoli. That's a great one. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and call it here. All right, so I will actually say you guys have... All right, so let's go through what you guys have posted, and I will tell you which ones worked. So if we go to Rerouted, their suggestion of Radioactive Man leads me to believe that someone has solved what the theme of this round is. Rerouted then posted another GIF later, and S7 also posted one. So yes, bananas are slightly radioactive, as are, of course, radium watches. So congratulations, you guys did a fantastic job there, guessing what the first round was. So that was number one. The category was radiation, or things that are radioactive. My next two words would have been, yeah, that was really, really well done. Congratulations. So you've successfully accomplished one round out of three. So let's hop into our next round. All right. Our first word for our second round is penicillin. You can also absolutely, Temker, type out an idea if you have a guess. You don't have to put a GIF or an image, whatever works best for you. So our next word is penicillin for round 2. New theme this time. All right. Penicillin. Some of these are very funny. We're on to round 2. Let's see. All right, you guys have about 20 seconds left. All right, and we're going to call it here. So I'm looking through your suggestions. We do have lots of medically related GIFs, including what I believe, Chris, that GIF, and Dasal. I'm pretty sure that mold is where the penicillin might have been found from. But there's nothing in your guys' choices here that works with our theme. However, I will just say that there is something in John's that would work in that GIF. There's something in that GIF, John's GIF, that has a doctor putting a stethoscope on a face. Technically, there is something in there that would count. But because it isn't the focal point, I'm not going to say it. So we're going to share the next suggestion. So your next clue is, reroute it. I'm going to count that for the next round. Your next clue is a microwave. So your next clue is the microwave. And you have about a minute. All right, all right. We're taking a look. You guys have about 30 seconds left. John, I really identify with that GIF you've just shared. That is a very... Yep. So round 2 is microwave. So let's see. What other words could go in a theme that has to do with penicillin and microwave? What two things, or what do those two things have in common? Penicillin and a microwave. What could be the common denominator between those two things? Penicillin and a microwave. Radiation was the first suggestion. This one's getting a little harder, huh? All right, we are going to call it. All right, so scrolling back up to see. So rerouted. My actual next clue is an X-ray. So X-ray does go in the theme. So X-rays, microwave, and penicillin all fall under this category. They're all something. There's something that all three of those things share in common. That is the theme of this round. Next one in this round. All right. Do we have any suggestions or any guesses? All three are expensive. That could work. All right. I'm going to give you my final clue. I technically have two final clues, but one of them is a real thing. All right. All right. This is my final clue. My final clue for this round. We have penicillin, microwave, X-ray, and Viagra. What do you think is the shared theme between all four of those words? Penicillin, microwave, X-ray, and Viagra. Oh no, Maximo, no! All right, you guys have about 30 seconds. This one's a hard one. This one's definitely a hard one. There's lots of ideas here. All right, you have about 10 seconds left. Waves, interesting, interesting. An experiment. The mega heel gift. That's very funny. All right, we're going to call it here. And so nothing in what you guys shared goes along with what the theme is. So, I am tempted. I'm going to let you guys guess one last time. But I am tempted by Trailblazer's suggestion of an experiment. Because there's something that links these four things together. So I'll give you about 10 seconds to make your final guesses. Medical advancements, experiment. You guys are getting really, really close to what the actual thing is. All right, I'll give you like 5 more seconds. This one's a tough one. It's a toughie. Tronity, you got it. That is incredible. Congratulations. Yes. So the answer was accidental inventions. So the X-ray, penicillin, microwaves and Viagra were all accidental. They all came out of scientists doing other experiments or trying to find other things, and they ended up finding something that had a different function, which is fantastic. I will add quickly that Corey actually had me, or wanted me to send this image, which is Maxim, as an accidental discovery. But I felt that wasn't appropriate. So that was on me. But he did want me to send that to you all. That's not me. That's Maxim. So, you guys did a great job. I'm so proud. Trinity, that was incredible. Well done. That was right at the last possible second too. Indeed, a genius spotted. All right, we are on to our final round. Well, our fourth round, our third round. It's not our final round. We have another round. So, our next round, I think you guys got this one. We're going to start with this word. And this word is car. So let me see in the next minute what you think might go along with this unknown theme if the first word is car. All right, let's see. Transportation. All right. I'm seeing a lot of great GIF usages. All right, you have about 20 seconds left. Jedi Master, how did you get that GIF of me driving my car? All right, this is looking good. So, all right, we're going to call it here. If you did send a picture of a car, especially, it looks like some of you sent basically the same type of car back. Those obviously work for our theme. Let me just verify one quick thing before I tell you. Technically, Shiny Force, I think what you sent, glass, technically, I think glass would technically work. The rover comment works. Glass works. Yeah, so those ones are the ones that work. So the rover works, glass works, car definitely works, especially that particular type of car. All right, I'll send you my next image for our next thing that worked. So this is the next one in this theme. So we agreed car, rover, glass. This is our next image. Dog. A dog also goes in this theme. So we have car, rover, dog, glass. What else goes in this theme? What other words could potentially go in this theme? I think you all are starting to get there. You have about 20 more seconds. All right. I love these GIFs. They're fantastic. All right. So I'm going to call it here because you guys have figured out what the answer was. So yes, so both a car, specific type of car, and a dog have both been in space. You got my third suggestion, which was going to be a rocket. And the fourth suggestion, had you needed it, would have also been Maxim. So all of those things have been in space. I think Maxim thought it was very funny that he be involved in this also. So, those are, that was the second round. You guys did so well that round. You did an incredible job there. So great job. Fantastic work. We're on to our fourth and final round. So far, you've managed to figure out my first three. I'm really impressed with you guys. This one, I think this one might be tough. This one might be tough for you guys. So let's get it started. This is our last round. Get your thinking caps on, my friends. Get your thinking caps on. First word is rover. I know that was just one from In Space, but first word for this new theme is rover. And I'll give you a minute. All right, I'm looking. All right. You have about 20 more seconds. So first word is rover. Get in your words, GIFs, images for something that would count for this theme. This one's a hard one. All right, we're gonna call it here. All right, so let me take a look. Let's see. Is there anything else that you guys guessed that would count as something for this theme? I see that you guys posted some other images of other rovers. Those don't really count quite as much as my particular rover. This is a specific, it's our Mars rover, the ISA's Mars rover on Mars. We very intentionally picked this image. All right, I'm gonna send you guys my next suggestion, or my next clue, basically. All right, let's see if this helps. So the first one was an ISA Mars rover. The next is dust. Dust. We have a Mars rover. We have dust. You have a minute now to make your suggestions of what could be the connecting theme between our ISA Mars rover and dust. Our ISA rover and dust. You have about 30 seconds left. I like where you guys are going with your gifts here. I do like that. You have about 20 seconds left. I think you guys, I think you might get it after my next guess. So get your last things in. All right. That is the end of this round. So we're going to send our next thing. So I'm seeing a lot of like repair work, cleaning. Those are not the theme we're looking for, so they don't really go with it. They're not the connecting things between dust and our Mars rover. I like the idea of maintenance though and repairs. I definitely think you're onto something CHRNV with on Mars, but there's something bigger than that, something more important and connecting. Something on Mars. They are hazards. All right, let me send you my third clue, and I'll give you another minute to think about it. So, my third clue is a toilet. So we have toilets, dust, and a Mars rover. What connects our Mars rover? What connects those three things together? Let's think. Let's think. Gravity is a good guess. I would say think about the world of our, I guess it's a planet, not. How has Mars been recently for our astronauts? It's been a little rough, eh? You have 10 seconds left to make your suggestions, to make your guesses in, and then I'll send you my fourth and final clue. This one's probably the hardest. All right, we're going to call it here. Rerouted, I think you're onto something. I think you're onto something potentially. I'm going to send you my last image that goes in this theme. And this one is accurate. So we have the ISA Mars rover, the dust, the toilet. You know what? I'm going to send you this, but rerouted, you've totally gotten the answer. So we're going to give it to you. The final thing in our list of 4 things is Maxim. But as it turns out, rerouted, that is completely what the answer is. It is things that have recently tried to kill our astronauts on Mars. They have dealt with Ida almost dying in the rover. They have dealt with a dust storm. They dealt with a very serious internal problem that involved a lot of time on the toilet. And of course, Maxim and his lack of monitoring the potentially static dust storm. You all did a phenomenal job there. I am so proud of you all. You got all 4 of my questions. You got all 4 of the themes. You passed that with flying colors. I am so proud of you all. I thought it might be a little too difficult. Did a toilet try to kill our astronauts? Well, they spent a lot of time on the toilet while they were dealing with their C. difficile illness. So that's where they spent a lot of time. Phenomenal job, you all. You all did a really, really great job guessing, making your suggestions, working together. I am so, so proud of you all. That was fantastic. And with that, I am happy to say that you all have successfully completed Maxim's game. So what did you think? Did you find Maxim's game fun? I know that Corey will want to know, since he did have to make a fun game for you all. Was fun, yeah? All right, good. I think Maxim will be very proud of that and really grateful that he doesn't have to change his name to Maximum Sock, because if you didn't have a good time, he would have to change his name to Maximum Sock. So that is a very good thing to hear. I will make sure to pass that along. With that being said, thank you all so much for spending this time with me this week. I hope you all have had a very fun time. I can't wait to see you all next week. Thank you all so much for spending the time with me. All right. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye, everyone.